All right, everybody. Ryan Hyatt with you here in Raiderland. It's a little flashback time. We had so much fun last week visiting with former Texas Tech relief pitcher Jack Stewart and going over that 1998 Big 12 tournament champion team that we thought we'd go back to the first time Texas Tech ever made it to the NCAA tournament. In the early 90s, Larry Hayes had some really good teams, some 40-win teams that didn't get there. They weren't selected in 93 and again in 1994, but all of that changed in 1995. And there to chronicle the whole thing, an old guy just like me. We bring an old friend, broadcast partner Mark Finkner. Mark, how you doing today?
Man, what is going on, Rhino? How you doing?
It's beautiful. We got some rain around here. All the ag
Yes,
producers
sir.
are happy. My truck's got mud on it. Probably tore up the undercarriage. I have no idea what's going on, but it's a great day.
Well, hey, as long as you
Sweet.
can get from point A to point B, does it really matter?
Exactly. It doesn't. And I almost didn't get from point A to point B today, but hey, we'll do mud talk on another day.
Okay.
Um, we hop in the Wayback Machine, and every year it gets a little farther back. But we go back to that era, and I think maybe for some of our younger viewers and for some of the newer Texas Tech fans, they may not realize how hard it was for Texas Tech and Larry Hayes just to get into the tournament back in the early 90s. You had those 240-win teams, and this was at a time when it was only a 48-team field. It stayed that way up until, I believe, 99 was the first year we went to the full field in the Super Regional. But, Mark, you were there chronicling it all, doing the play-by-play, and what was your first year kind of doing the full-time play-by-play? Was that 94
No, it was
or was that the
95.
95?
It was
It
it
was
was
the 95
95.
season.
Yes,
Okay, so
sir.
you shoved Bill and Glenn out of the way and took over there
No,
in
no, no, no.
95.
Now, hey, now let's put this in true perspective. Seitzer and I did the games together in '95 and '96 after Glenn moved to Charleston to do College of
Yeah.
Charleston. And so Glenn Seal leaves. I get the opportunity to come on. And I mean, I knew what you're looking at. I mean, this was a great program on the rise. You're right. Larry and the bunch had won 40 plus in 91 in one of Tim Tadlock's seasons, his senior year.
Yeah.
And then in 92 was a weird year because the Southwest Conference decided to go to a double round robin, and you're playing Texas in Austin in late January as a conference series. It
Yeah.
was that crazy. 93, they won over 40. 94, they finished second in the Southwest Conference to Texas, lost in extra innings in the Southwest Conference championship game to Texas. And there was some politics involved. I think Cliff Gustafson saw what Larry was building, tried to keep him down as long as he possibly
Yep.
could. But in '95, broke the door open by winning the league, winning the Southwest Conference tournament. It was a four-teamer, us, A&M, UT, Rice, and then get
Was
into
that
the
down at
NCAA
Olson Field
tournament.
that year, or was that at
Yeah,
Dish Falk?
no, it was at Olson Field because
Okay.
Tech had not won a single game at Olson Field since 1980 when they went down there. Yeah, they had got just swept. In
Yeah.
'95, they go down there. We split four. Should have won the Sunday game. Got beat after scoring four in the top of the 10th. A&M scored five in the bottom, won 9-8 to walk us off to split the four gamer. So you split four games with them, then you go back down there. They beat Texas in the opening round for the fourth time that year, and then proceeded to beat A&M once. Then A&M beat you through the loser side for an if game, and then Tech won the if game. So they won four times in College Station in
Yeah.
'95. It was a wild year.
I'm sure our old friend Dave South is very pleased. Well, I tell you what, Aggie faithful, these aren't bad umpires. They're just having a bad day here against the Red Raiders, and maybe they'll review
Again,
this call, and we'll see if we can get this overturned. 100 years of Aggie baseball by Sibagagi. I don't know.
yeah,
That doesn't
about right.
that didn't feel very good. All right, so love me some Dave South. Get through the tournament. And like we said, the conference tournaments mattered back then with the smaller field. And it
Right.
truly was important. Set the scene, the announcements made. Mark, I don't think we even had a TV show back then. I think they just sent out a fax. And you find out you're going to Tyler Eck, you're going to Wichita State for the
It was
Midwest
actually
one.
Rhino. It was actually to a conference call because I was still working in Plainview full time and doing
Right?
the Tech games. So I was actually on a conference call in our newsroom in Plainview when you found out the field and who was in and what your seeds were going to be. I mean, they did send a fax as well, but you could get on, a conference call and find out where you were at.
See, that's where I was as the sports director at KFOL. I guess I didn't get the passcode to get in on the conference call, and I had to wait for Max Mott to tell me, hey, they're in. They got in. Number 1 seed Midwest Regional 1, and this is the day of the era of the 6 teams in the regional. Yep. They match up with number 6 Providence. It was 2nd seed was Wichita State. 3rd seed was Stanford. They played the 4th seed Arkansas on day 1. At least I think it was day 1. I can't remember when the rain started. And then Wichita State and 5th seed Lamar, which at that time and at different times over the years, Lamar was some really good teams.
Yeah, I mean they had some good arms. Right when you look at that field, you went in, you were the 1 seed. Wichita State was chomping at the bit because we had played Wautau twice at home. It was a completion of a home series. Mm-hmm. Tech had gone to OU in 94 and then to Wichita and played 2 games there against Wichita State. Come back to Lubbock in 95. You played OU 2 games on a weekend, on a Saturday, Sunday. You split with them. You had Wichita State come in for 2 games and you sweep them. One game, the second game was extra innings in which Randy Duross bunts a ball down the third baseline. It hits the bag with the bases loaded, 2 out in the bottom of the 10th. He bunts, and it goes right down the line. It hits the bag, and yet a walk-off bunt to sweep Coach Stevenson and the Shockers.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mean Gene was very pleased and excited about that. And
he was fired. He was big time fired up. He wanted Tech, and he thought, okay, I'm going to get him in my yard, and I'm going to get him. Problem was, they lost to Lamar in the first round. We never saw Wichita State on the field the whole time we were there.
Yeah, Lamar would get them twice. Lamar would beat them 13-11. And then Wichita State, trying to come back through the losers bracket, would eliminate Providence 6-2. And then it was Lamar getting them again 4-1 on their own field. Speaking of Providence, let us invoke the name of Todd in
Cantalupo, correct. The freshman All-American. Oh, man, it was crazy because, we go into that first game thinking, okay, he was like 11-0 something. I don't remember the exact record. I think it was like 11-0. Freshman All-American, left-hander, had a real small ERA. And of course, in this time of the live bat, man, I mean, when his ERA was like 2.5 or something, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, anything under 3 was exceptional.
Oh, no doubt. And you go in and you retire him. I mean, Travis Smith goes out for you, just a bulldog that year for you. He goes out, mows him down in the first inning. Then you come up and you proceed to hit this guy. And some balls were hit hard, but there were 2 balls hit. And now I guess I should probably set the scene just a little bit here because it was cloudy. It was gray.
Right.
We never saw the sun the whole time we were in Wichita because it was cloudy and rainy the whole time. In fact, we started a day late. It was supposed to start on Friday. We didn't start till Saturday, and they compacted games. And because of the if game that we'll get into in a minute, the regional didn't actually end up until Tuesday morning. But we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so you're playing the gray stands there at Tyler Eck, and then you hit 2 balls in the air. You have right fielder going one way, center fielder going another way. They don't converge on a ball. They run in opposite directions. It falls in between them 2 different times in that first inning, and you score like 10 in the first inning. And I mean, it was off to the races. Clint Bryant I believe he hit for the cycle in that game, and you win 24-5, and it wasn't as close as the final score might indicate.
I just remember listening at my apartment that day thinking this game's never going to end. And there's no run rule. There's no run rule. It just
there was not. There was no run rule. You had to play the full 9, and in all NCAA tournament competition, you do. So I mean, we won't see that because of I guess I always wonder if they would do that like in the last game of a tournament. when it's
Yeah.
like, no doubt. But anyway, so you get by them, then you get Arkansas that night in
Hello,
trying to,
Norm.
Norm DeBrin, yes, great, legendary coach at Arkansas. And you get them that night in a, they had lost to Stanford. So in those 6 teams, if you're the 1 seed, which Tech was as a winner, you got the loser of the 3-4 game in the second round. So if you win that game, then you only had 4 teams left because 2 losers, 1 would be eliminated. But if the loser in that first game won, then you had a 5-team bracket after that. So it was definitely a different type of feel to it. It was kind of a slugfest that night, and Tech ended up winning 14-10 to get to 2-0 as they won twice on that first day on Saturday.
And we'll get to the first meeting with Stanford in a second. This gives us a good time. This team now has hung up 38 runs in the first 2 games. It was one of the most prolific offenses, not just in school history, in college baseball history. Run me through some of those names. We talked about Clint Bryant. We got Tater Tot sitting there, Randy Duras. I mean, it was a tour de force.
Well, no doubt.
Offensive firepower.
Rhino, let me put it to you this way. You'll never see in the Big 12 again, or in a conference Tech is in it, being a Power 5 school. You will never, ever see again an all Southwest Conference infield or an all conference infield that had 1 school represented, because you had catcher Dave Lindstrom, Texas Tech, first baseman Randy Duras, Texas Tech, second baseman Jason Topman, Texas Tech, shortstop Dion Rucker, Texas Tech, third baseman Clint Bryant, Texas Tech. You'll never see that again because of politics and what have you. I mean, that just tells you how good this team was. They led the nation for a while in average and power, and they had guys in the outfield. I mean, you had Brandon Welch, you had Dax Homestead, you had Matt Kostelic, who was a superb base stealer. He stole over 50 bases for you that year. I mean, you had all the tools, and it's just to me, I still think to this day, if Tech could have beaten Stanford a second time and been in Omaha, I don't know if they'd have won it, but they'd have done damage. They would not have been 2 in barbecue, I promise you.
No, that team at Old Rosenblatt would have been something to see there in 1995. I just still chuckle. And, of course, Clint Bryant, one of the greats of the greats, number retired. He hits well over 400, 422 on the year. He didn't have the best average on his own team.
Right.
Jason Totman did.
Tater Tot was like over 430 that year. And you had Matt. I mean, you just had Kostelic at the top of the order to set the table. I mean, because he just, he's kind of like your version of Nolan Hester on this year's team, except, he gets on base all the time, but he would get to second and third a lot too, just because of his pure speed. And Matt wasn't the fastest guy, but he was a great base stealer. And it's a baseball cliche. It's one of those things you can be fast, but not know how to run bases, or be crafty and know how to run them. He was more crafty, but he had quickness. There's no doubt, but he knew when and how to run on opponents.
We're visiting with Mark Finkner, longtime voice of Texas Tech baseball, talking about the first ever trip to the NCAA tournament for the Red Raiders in 1995 that very nearly ends up as the first ever trip to the College World Series. Sitting at 2-0, you're watching teams battle to get to you into the quarterfinals now. We get that first matchup with Stanford, the 1 versus the 3 seed, and it's going to be Texas Tech getting the win, 3-1. Help me out on my memory. Was this Brandon Kolb taking the ball in
this
that
was
game?
The Brandon Kolb game, yes, because he was a Northern California kid. He wanted to pitch at Stanford desperately. They didn't recruit him. He went the junior college route. I believe it was Chabot, but one of the junior colleges out in California. They still didn't recruit him. He comes to Tech because you remember in the 90s, Frank Anderson, Larry Hayes, and Emo, Greg Evans, they all recruited Cali JUCOs big time. And they find Brandon. They're like, man, this guy's got a great arm. He comes in and he's more like your midweek guy just because of control. I mean, he had 95, and I mean in 1995, if you're throwing 95,
Oh yeah.
it was not as common as it is today. There's no question about that. He was able to really run it up there, 95 to 97, and Frank Anderson and Larry Hayes, they were talking about pitching because you had Travis Smith who'd already pitched, you had Jeff Peck who'd already pitched, and Matt Miller. Well, you had Matt Miller who had already pitched. He pitched the second game. You thought, okay, you go Jeff Peck, lefty, good, had some run, but not the velocity, or Brandon Kolb, and they rolled the dice and said, hey, let's take it to Stanford here with Kolb. He made one mistake, a solo homer, but outside of that, he was awesome that night. You did things really well defensively. You got a couple of timely hits. You win 3-1, and you're sitting there in the catbird seat with a chance to advance. I mean, Brandon, that's the game of his life. I mean, that's a game that made him a lot of money.
Yes, it did. It filled up his wallet pretty good. He'd be drafted, I think, in the 4th round from almost out of nowhere, getting a nice little signing bonus. So here we are, Texas Tech now. Somebody's going to have to come back and get them twice. They're going to watch, Stanford try to come through the losers bracket at that point against Lamar, who had eliminated Wichita State. This is where Mother Nature, I think, really, again, my memory is hazy. You were there. I was not. I think this is when Mother Nature really announced her presence with authority, and some long-term delays started happening with this tournament. Walk me through a little bit of what was going on at that point.
Yeah, you had now you played the 2 games on Saturday after rain washed you out completely on Friday. Then they played, I think it was like 4 games on Saturday. Tech was involved in 2 of them, and they played quite a bit on Sunday. Then I think there was a rain delay on Monday that pushed you back a couple hours or so. Now, it wasn't anything like Billy and I get on the air and we got to be on for 2 hours or anything before first pitch. It wasn't anything crazy like that.
Yeah.
But you did have a delay. You got, well, I take that back. It may have been it was actually the Sunday night game where it was kind of rainy, overcast, and it was Sunday night, but you end up getting it in finally and you win. Then you go to Monday and fighting through the losers bracket, and then Stanford comes back, as you mentioned, beat Lamar, and then they're throwing a left-hander. They throw a little left-hand thumber named Mario Iglesias against you, and you go with Jeff Peck. And at this point in most tournaments, it's first one to 15, but just because of the bats. But both teams played great defense, had timely pitching, and it was 2-2. And Stanford was the home team, and they got an RBI single with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. And Dion Rucker jumps for the ball, and he misses it by about 2 inches. Goes over his glove into left center for the base hit that ultimately won the game and forced the, if necessary, game on Tuesday morning.
And that
was a 10 a.m. start.
Yeah.
And it was, to my knowledge, the first game that had ever been simulcast on an AM and an FM, because we carried those games. In fact, all the games in the NCAA tournament were carried on both 1340 and on 99.5. We carried games on AM and FM because there was such excitement here in Lubbock for the team and what they thought they might be able to do. So we play Monday night, lose, go back to the hotel, obviously dejected, but you got to put it behind you in a hurry because 10 a.m. Tuesday morning came early, and we get to the yard about 8 o'clock. We're obviously our equipment's set up, and we get around right before we hit the air around 9:30. Bill and I get a sheet of paper that says, if Tech wins, here are the seeds, because the other 7 regionals were done.
Everything's done. Yeah.
Everything's done. We're the only game left to be played to determine that final seed. If we'd have won, we'd have been the 6th seed in Omaha. Then it had the projections. If Stanford was the winner, they were the 8th seed because of their record. Remember, they were the 3 seed. They had they were a very similar record to what our Red Raiders have right now. So I mean, it's a very similar. I mean, I want to say they had lost like around 20 games. I mean, they weren't super impressive. You go. I mean, obviously, it's you throw all your chips in. We went back to Travis Smith on 3 days rest. Well, actually, 2 days rest, Sunday, Monday, just to see what you could get. And Stanford has this freshman named Kyle Peterson.
Yep.
And Omaha kid, and he threw an unbelievable game for Stanford, and got him to Omaha. If I ever meet him, I'm gonna shake his hand and say, "Dad gum, you kept me from being in Omaha in 1995." But
that's pretty much what I told him in 14, and then again in 16.
okay.
And then in 18, Mark, I see him on the elevator at TD Ameritrade, and he goes, I know, Wichita. So we still have a pretty good chuckle.
No doubt.
Say, over it. Yeah, but he knows his place in Stanford history and in Red Raider history. I want to go back. So you guys were up there forever, and I know on our massive radio budgets at the time, you had to be living large and seeing all of Wichita, Kansas there for about a week. That must have been great.
Right. Now I will tell you this. GM Scott Parsons, he did call me into the office that year.
Right.
I think it was after the first trip to A&M, and I turned my receipts in because at that time, I turned my hotel receipt in. Well, I think actually the team picked up my hotel that year, but I turned in my receipts. If I had a rental, I couldn't have had a rental car in '95. I hadn't turned 25 yet. That's another story for another day.
Back in the day.
But anyway, I turned my receipts in, and he had looked at them, and he finally said, "Fink, can I talk to you about your receipts a minute?" And I was like, "Sure." I said, "Am I in trouble here? Have I spent too much?" And he said, "Well, Mark, you can go to somewhere besides McDonald's and Jack in the Box if you want on the road. Now you can't have a steak every meal, but you don't have to go to McDonald's or Jack in the Box all the time." And I was like, "Well, I'm just trying to be a good steward, trying to keep it down." But yeah, that trip, I think we hit Olive Garden once. I know, Major in Wichita. Hit a couple. I think we hit a wing place. But a lot of it is, as far as the meals go, we kind of stuck around the hotel, but it wasn't like it wasn't catered meals,
right?
Like a lot of teams have now, or like you experience with the Lady Raiders, and like we experience now.
Like you do now, yeah.
Definitely different then, but yeah, the budget expanded a little. It didn't expand a ton. But part of it was because, man, if it had been sunny and nice, you had places to go and time to kill. If it had been a more regulated kind of tournament, instead it was kind of crammed in and forced to go to Tuesday and lose, and then get on a plane, and we're flying home that afternoon on a commercial flight, back to Dallas, and then back to Lubbock. That was not a lot of fun, but that truly was one of the most special teams that I've covered. I mean, that team and the Lady Raider team this past season are two of my absolute most favorite teams that I've ever covered from start to finish in a season. Just the camaraderie, the specialness, the bond that was there between the players and us. I mean, it was truly a special season. You won 51 games that year, still the school record to this day. You went 51-14. You won 49 the next year. I mean, imagine you won 100 games in 2 years and didn't get to Omaha either year. Man, just bad luck at the wrong time.
Yeah, and obviously you and I were much closer in age to those guys than we are to the players now. So we kind of have a unique bond with some of them through the years.
You bet.
And I thought it was really interesting, when Tadlock's program broke through in 14 and then the success over the years. These guys, they aren't envious. They aren't jealous. They're the first ones to celebrate because they understand how hard it is and how hard it was to get close. And I tell you what, when I was up there looking around in 14 pregame, that first game against TCU, and looking at some of the faces that I got to see up there in the stands, Mark, I tell you, I got a little emotional. And you need to be there. Next time you need to be there.
Yeah, I do what now?
Next time we're in Omaha, you need to be there.
Oh man, I want to go desperately. And I tell you what, if things fall right, as crazy as this sounds, this team could end up in Omaha. I mean, think about this, Rhino. Okay,
Yeah.
we've talked a little bit about 2014. Okay, how did that door open for you in 2014? Who did you play in the Supers?
Exactly. You go to Miami, and then it
Yeah,
opens up
you
for
go to Miami,
Charleston.
but
Yeah,
remember, who were you matched up with?
yeah.
You were matched up with the number 2 national seed,
Yep. That didn't
Florida.
get through. Yeah.
College of Charleston beat them twice. That opens the door for you. Could that happen with this bunch? Who knows? Maybe. But to me, I think if you win this Florida regional, you'll beat an outstanding team. Florida is really, really good. They're really good. But
Yeah.
if you're able to get by them, I don't
Yeah.
think South Carolina wins their regional. I think Campbell has had a tremendous season, and they got a chip on their shoulder.
Yes, they
So
do.
if you get Campbell, you're playing them here in Lubbock. I mean, their facility can't host, and they're
Yep.
going to try to go to a minor league park. They could have this weekend, but they didn't win the bid. Most likely, that minor league team is going to be back in town. That facility is not going to be available.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're looking way down the road. You need to be looking at UConn right now, and I get that completely. But the precedent is there for this team if things fall right. Sometimes it's not necessarily the best 8 teams get to Omaha. You got to have a little luck involved. And I think that this is a bunch that if they get some of the pitching, I mean, I really like the way Petty pitched Saturday. I love the way
Yes.
Robinson pitched Saturday. And, I think you got opportunity in this, in this tournament. If you get guys like Petty and Robinson and Molina, those 3 up front, I put those 3 up against almost anybody.
Yep. No pressure right now. You just go
No,
play some
none.
baseball. You go have fun for 3 or 4 days, and you see what happens. And I
Right.
take chances with old Tim Tadlock. We'll see.
I no doubt. I mean, they'll leave tomorrow, or they'll leave Wednesday, I guess, and then they'll head to Gainesville, get in there, and have a practice day on Thursday, and then play the early game Friday. And I like the fact that they get the early game Friday. You win that one,
Yes.
you get maximum rest. I know that's something that Coach Tadlock likes a lot too.
You get rest, and you know exactly what time you're going to start. So
Right.
everything is scheduled. You're not sitting around waiting around the hotel room, killing time. Okay, now we go to the park, and now we got to wait. It's just like a basketball tournament. I love being the first game of a session because everything is set up for me and I don't have to wait. He is Mark Finkner. He is the voice of the Lady Raiders these days, and I got a feeling next year is going to be we're going to be talking, I think, to you a lot about this coming season because Coach Gerlich's got some things happening right now.
Oh, there is no doubt.
People are sleeping on them in the offseason. They better not be because they're putting together something really cool, I think.
Yeah, my thought there is I think they're probably going to be picked around 4th in a 14-team league next year. My gut. Yeah. I think K-State will probably be the preseason pick, Texas 2nd, Kansas probably 3rd, although they lost a couple of kids to Oklahoma State via the transfer portal. So really after K-State and Texas, maybe Tech fills that role. I mean, you got most of your, you've got a good core back. Yeah, you lost your leading scorer in Bree Scott and your everything and your Swiss Army knife in the big cat, Katie Farrell. But I tell you what, this is a team that I think you're going to love watching them play. And it will be interesting to see how this team gels and comes together because it's a full roster. It's a full 15, and they can all play.
It's fun to watch, fun to listen to you on the call as well. Mark, thanks for sitting in with us a little bit here on a Tuesday night. We could talk, you and I, we could talk baseball for days. And
no doubt.
Maybe this summer we may just have to do that. I appreciate the time.
Right on. Anytime, Rhino. Thank you, buddy.
We appreciate you guys enjoying a little flashback with us. We have this obviously on the website. You can share it with folks on Twitter, on Facebook, and wherever you want to hear from theraiderland.com.